In most societies, gender is defined as a range of societal beliefs, norms and practices that define masculine and feminine attributes and behaviors, including sexual relations. These considerations come to fore when treating the subject of HIV/AIDS right from the inception stage of the infection. Though ways of transmission in sub-Saharan Africa include unsafe blood transfusion, reuse of needles and sharp piercing or cutting objects, mother-to-child transmission (MTCT), HIV/AIDS primarily is a sexually transmitted disease. People's attitude to sex therefore plays an integral role in the individual's vulnerability to the infection, access to care or treatment, and the ability to cope when infected or affected. What are the gender dimensions in the individual's vulnerability to HIV/AIDS?
You have a lot of difference between women and men. They have unequal access to funds, they have unequal control over so many things, which makes them more susceptible to HIV/AIDS infection. Now, physiologically, you know that because women and girls are receptacles in any sexual relationship, they also tend to be infected more easily than men.
There's a power differential. Men are more powerful in terms of sexual dominance relative to women, and women therefore find it difficult to negotiate for sex. STDs in general make men and women vulnerable, and because that a woman does not show or indicates, if I may use the word, makes her extra vulnerable.
Unequal power relations between men and women, coupled with imbalance of economic power, is said to be responsible for the inability of women to negotiate sex, resulting in higher level vulnerability of women to HIV/AIDS.
And oftentimes, even at home, when the husband is infected, he brings it home, and especially in our society where you have these polygamous homes, a man may have up to 4 wives, and before you know it, he has infected all 4 of them, and he will not even tell them that this is the problem, and he may even go and treat himself. He will not treat his poor wives, and you find that one by one they'll all go. So we have to really take it as a matter of priority to look at it on a gender perspective. Our cultural beliefs, our religious beliefs also has to come in.
If a woman is married to a man, even when she knows her man has been sleeping around, when he comes home to sleep with her, because she knows that by sleeping around, he's made himself vulnerable to the infection, meaning what? She is likely to contact the infection. So if he comes home as a husband and he wants to sleep with her, it's difficult for her to say, please use a condom. Because culturally and religiously, women don't have the strength to say, okay, if you don't use a condom, I'm not going to sleep with you. Similarly, with poverty and poverty-related conditions, if you discuss with commercial sex workers, you learn that men prefer to have sex without using a condom, and they pay higher price. But because the woman is poor, she needs the money to either for her parents or her brothers and sisters back home. She will get herself have sex without condom, while at the same time making herself more vulnerable because the man will pay higher.
Studies have shown that levels of knowledge about HIV/AIDS prevention are almost always higher among men than women. This consequently hinders women's ability to be informed about risk reduction, as our societies expect women to be morally upright and therefore expected to be ignorant about sex and sexual interactions. Even in community outreaches such as that of the Abuja University Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada, gender comes to play in the community's participation.
Primarily, we visit patients in the community. We encourage them for VCT testing, and also those that are positive, we encourage them to be enrolled in the clinic for their treatment, for support, and for care.
The men come out and they listen. and they want to be tested very easily. All right? But unless the women are invited by their husbands, they don't come out. Now, usually, when the men invite their wives out, they are prepared for whatever outcome.
Men also fall victim of society's expectation of them to be more knowledgeable and experienced about sex, putting men, particularly young men, at risk as they are reluctant to admit ignorance and seek protection. This dovetails into another high-risk behavior resulting from society's expectation of men to express their masculinity by having multiple sexual partners, while women are expected to be faithful to one partner, but may be at the mercy of that partner's high-risk behavior.
A lot of men today, they have heard about HIV, they know what is going on, but they just refuse to come out because they feel it's only a weak man who will accept that he's ill. It's only a weak man who will not have 5 girlfriends and things like that. So long as we continue to have that, we will continue to have HIV.
This challenges the effectiveness of HIV/AIDS preventive efforts.
We are the women of Nigeria. Listen to the voices from generations. Listen to the voices of battered women. We don't want violence.
Violence against women, another determinant of vulnerability to HIV/AIDS infection, is manifested in 2 ways. Violent sex, such as rape, may result in infection from the rapist. The fear of violence from the sexual partner may prevent a woman from insisting on fidelity or the use of condoms.
We want to help society. We don't want this brutal violation. We don't want violence.
Another area where the gender dimensions of HIV/AIDS manifests is the individual's willingness to submit to test and the response to an HIV positive result.
We have actually discovered instances where, after enrollment on antiretroviral drugs, men have gone back home and shared their drugs. They were meant, to be taken in 1 month with their wives, who don't know why they should take these drugs. The women, because they are not taking adequate dose, their strain of infection becomes resistant to antiretroviral treatment.
Before now, we find that most women are very shy to talk about it. They would rather die in silence. And sometimes you find in a family, a husband and wife are both positive. The man may know well in advance, but will never communicate that to his wife. And sometimes this type of men may even go and seek for medical help. While they are treating themselves, their wives are not treated, not knowing that in fact, without treating their wives, they may be wasting their time.
Many men, women are tested at the antenatal clinic. And when they go home and tell their husbands that they've been found to be HIV positive, the first thing the man will say is that, where did you get it from? Get out of my house. And when you ask that same man, go and test and let us find out what's your own status. He will say he's not going to test that. How can he have HIV? And that is where stigma starts for the woman. And it is very, very bad, in fact. It is widespread. That's why women would not like to be tested. And even if they find that they are HIV positive, they will be begging that, don't let my husband know.
The stigmatization of people living with HIV/AIDS is responsible to a large extent for people's refusal to disclose their HIV status.
We have seen instances where a person applied to join the Nigerian Navy, did very well during the examinations, he did very well during the interview. Then somewhere along the interview, they were asked to come and do HIV tests. And all those who tested HIV were dropped. And that is a government institution. We have seen instances of PLWs who live within compounds. They suddenly come home one day, and all the members of the compound just come and say that we have known what is wrong with you. We don't want you in the compound anymore. We don't want to live with us. Or they wake up in the morning and they go and lock the toilet or the bathroom and say you cannot use the same toilet with us. So there are so many things. There's a woman in Kano who tested positive, and she went and told her man friend that she was positive, and the man just stabbed her to death. Stabbed her with the scissors. He's a tailor. He just stabbed her and killed her.
I think it was yesterday that I got a letter from an HIV/AIDS victim, a woman who contacted AIDS through her husband, and I think she has 2 of her children are also affected. Her husband died, so she has to move to her family. Now her family has thrown her out. So she wrote us a letter that this is her dilemma and that she needed some support from us. So what we have now set in motion is to investigate the truth of the matter to see how we can assist and help her. So you can see that discrimination is not only from people that you do not know, even your family.
In fact, it shows in the relationship between a father and a daughter. A father is more likely to reject a daughter who tests positive.
It's a very worrisome thing. If the men do not change their attitude, stigma will remain with us for very long.
Why is stigma so dangerous?
This stigmatization, I think, will be the first killer before the disease. Because once you are psychologically traumatized, what do?
Stigmatization has very serious effects on the control of this disease. Apart from the fact that those that are affected or infected by HIV/AIDS, apart from the fact that stigmatizing them isolates them, breaks them down, it therefore wears them out very quickly and kills them very fast. And it gives them a feeling of, not just loneliness, but helplessness and being people who are unwanted in society. Because of the stigmatization, people don't go for voluntary testing. They don't want to know their status. And once they don't know their status, they keep spreading the disease and it keeps going around the place. While if there was no stigmatization, they will come out, everybody will come out openly and have a test and know that it's a disease like any other disease.
And this is why we are embarking on very strong advocacy campaign against that. That the fact that one is HIV positive does not mean the end of life. In fact, because of improved medical technology now with the availability of retroviral drugs, we have been told that people can live their full time if they are taking medication.
People do not want to be disowned. People do not want to be isolated. People want to feel a sense of belonging. They want to be accepted. Everybody needs love.
Nigeria prides itself in being a caring society. How can stigma be countered and eliminated, seeing that it is critical to our response to and management of HIV/AIDS?
If we use role models like top government officials intermingling with people living with the virus, every other person who does not have a position of reckoning in the society would come to grips with the reality of the fact that HIV does not contaminate people externally, all right? And so they would throw their arms around people who are infected, especially women.
For those that are unfortunate to have relations and children that are infected, they must show love. They must show love. They are the ones that must ensure that this stigmatization is completely removed, not just from the other children, from the other relations at home, but this thing that is they extend love to them and let them know that look, they are going to get out of this.
There are specific ways of getting HIV/AIDS. Therefore, people should not run away from those who are positive.
The fight of stigma is still based on education, continuous education, disseminating accurate facts. And I've always said One way to fight stigma is to afford people who are living with HIV/AIDS good quality of life. When people see that people who are living with HIV/AIDS are living well, they say, what are we fearing after this? So it will reduce the way they react. But when you give them the belief that anybody who is HIV positive is a dead person, of course everybody wants to run away from such a situation, and that leads to a heightened level of stigma. I often give the example, before I started the work of this network, I was a colonel in the Nigerian Army. I lived in a 4-flat bedroom in Ikoyi in Lagos. When I retired and I took over this job, if you knew how I've been living in Abuja, you will be very sorry for me. So I tell them, I say that, what do you want other doctors who are HIV positive to think? If they look at Dr. Pat Matemilola, who has been HIV positive for 14 years, has been struggling, has been doing this work, look at his condition. Is he better off? So when they see that if you're HIV positive, whatever you do, you go down very, very low in society, then how are they encouraged to come out?
You cannot stigmatize any person living with HIV and AIDS, because they will still have the capacities to do anything they want to do. I'm married with children. I'm a professional accountant. So what is it you can do that I cannot do? I work here. We close here 10 p.m. every day. I get him. So what is it you can do that I cannot do?
The care and support for people living with HIV/AIDS also has its gender dimensions.
The women, they are more willing to stand by their men, to render care, and to go with them the whole hog. They brace up for the challenges of the possibility of their being positive also.
Mostly the care and support is performed more by women than by men, relative. And more people tend to be in the rural communities, because even in the cities, when people are sick, they tend to move and hide with their neighbor or relations in the communities.
Where women and men, are left after the demise of the parents from HIV/AIDS, for example, it is the girls that come back home to come and look after the rest of the family.
In a family where the husband is positive and the wife is positive and maybe a little child is positive, you discover that the man is virtually on holiday, but the woman runs around for herself, she runs around for her child, and she runs around also for the man. So the burden of caregiving on HIV/AIDS is enormous on women.
There is also an economic factor integral to the gender dimensions of treatment, care, and support of HIV/AIDS patients. Even where antiretroviral drugs are available and perhaps free through hospitals and support groups who are themselves assisted by agencies such as the National Action Committee on AIDS and a number of international aid agencies, drugs need to be purchased. There are opportunistic infections and conditions such as tuberculosis which result in hospitalization. Often, these caregivers, women, have had to abandon their economic activities to look after sick loved ones. These women need support.
Women are not only poor, but they are helpless. And so I seize this opportunity to call the attention of government to pay particular attention to women who are infected with HIV. Why? Because you see, if we protect them, if we build them up, we preserve the family. The child who is positive needs his mother. The husband who is positive needs his wife. They all need to go along together.
The women, we receive scores and scores and scores of letters of appeal from these women that are affected, and we try to help them. First of all, we try to help them at least by giving them some money so that they can access retroviral drugs, at least to cushion the effect of HIV/AIDS. Apart from that, we also try to help campaign against discrimination against them, especially in workplace, because you find that a lot of them are discriminated against, especially in workplace. So we have gender focal points in almost every ministry, And that is the role of the gender focal points, to see that they protect the interests of women wherever they may be.
In the government's fight against HIV/AIDS, the National Action Committee on AIDS, NACA, was established to control the spread of HIV/AIDS, provide equitable care and support for those infected and affected, and to mitigate its impact so that Nigerians can achieve socially and economically productive lives free of the disease and its effects. Observations made in this documentary underscores the importance of working with both men and women in the fight against HIV/AIDS. This is a key area where gender equality translates as equal access to preventive knowledge, equal access to treatment and support, and the fight against stigmatization must come to bear if we are to achieve the National Action Committee on AIDS goals.
Our next vision is how we can bring men to come more to terms with HIV and give women their due, not only within the home, but also within our support. These are the kind of things we want to be doing now.